Hello everyone. My name is Elizabeth Harper, though most people just call me Liz. I'm a 65-year-old woman who once ran a renowned fashion brand in New York, Harper Designs. For 20 years, I poured every ounce of myself into building that company from scratch, rising from heartbreak after losing my husband to creating a name that became synonymous with elegance and ambition. Just recently, I sold Harper Designs for a staggering $30 million, a milestone I had dreamed of but never imagined would feel so bittersweet. But today isn't about numbers or success. Today, I want to share the story of a night that changed everything. A night that should have been filled with celebration, laughter, and congratulations, but instead revealed a painful truth about the people I called family. It was my retirement party, a culmination of decades of work and sacrifice, yet it turned into an eye-opening lesson about trust, betrayal, and the hidden dynamics that often lurk behind closed doors. Through that evening, I discovered not only the extent of their scheming, but also the strength I had quietly cultivated over the years. The events of that night taught me lessons I could never have learned in a boardroom or through success alone. If you're still listening, we want to sincerely thank you for spending your time with us. Truly means a lot. We'd love to know, where in the world are you watching from? Drop your country in the comments and let's see how far this message has reached. If you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, I highly recommend doing it now so you won't miss any of our upcoming stories. These aren't just ordinary stories. They're filled with meaningful life lessons that can inspire, teach, and stay with you long after the video ends. Hit that subscribe button and join our growing community. Now let's begin. 2 months earlier, in my Manhattan penthouse overlooking the glittering skyline, I stood amidst the soft glow of crystal chandeliers, surrounded by the carefully curated elegance of my retirement party, an event my son, Nathan, 38, insisted on organizing. Nathan, a struggling architect wrestling with the challenges of his own small firm, had insisted with unwavering sincerity, "Mom, you deserve to be celebrated," his green eyes shining with a warmth I once trusted without question. Beside him, his wife Cassandra, 35, a fashion influencer with thousands of followers but an alarmingly thin bank account, volunteered to host the entire event. I thought she merely sought to flaunt appearances, unaware at the time that her intentions were far more perilous. The apartment buzzed with a subtle tension, despite the facade of glamour. Abstract paintings adorned the walls, their muted tones reflecting the soft brilliance of the chandeliers, while the skyline cast shimmering patterns across the marble floors. Friends, business partners, and former colleagues mingled gracefully, their laughter punctuated by clinking glasses. Cassandra moved through the room like a queen surveying her court, golden hair perfectly styled, a practiced smile that could disarm even the most discerning observer. "Liz, you look stunning tonight," she said, her red-painted nails brushing lightly against my arm as she handed me a glass of champagne. I smiled politely, though a faint unease had already begun to knot in my stomach. I turned to chat with an old colleague about sustainable fashion trends, trying to focus on familiar, comforting topics. But my peripheral vision kept drifting, and I caught sight of Cassandra lingering near the drinks table. She glanced around with careful calculation, her movements deliberate yet deceptively casual. Then, with a quiet precision that sent a chill through me, she pulled a tiny glass vial from her Chanel bag. Before I could comprehend what I was seeing, she tilted it, letting a clear liquid slip into a chipped champagne glass. My favorite glass, reserved for moments like this, moments that were supposed to be celebratory. My heart seemed to stop mid-beat. Time slowed. The laughter and music around me blurred into a muffled hum. I froze, my instincts screaming, 1,000 memories of betrayal and caution rushing back from decades of life lived in high-stakes environments. Cassandra's eyes flicked toward me for just a fraction of a second, just long enough to reveal a trace of satisfaction hidden beneath her flawless exterior, before she moved on, blending seamlessly with the crowd. The room, so familiar in safe moments before, suddenly felt like a labyrinth of shadows and deceit. I felt a surge of clarity. All the small things, the whispered comments, the subtle manipulations, the overpolished smiles suddenly aligned. Nathan's insistence, Cassandra's meticulous orchestration, the careful positioning of certain guests, they weren't gestures of love or celebration. They were pieces in a larger, sinister puzzle, designed to test, deceive, or perhaps humiliate me. I realized then that this night, my so-called retirement celebration, had been transformed into a stage for a secret drama in which I was both star and unwitting participant. A deep, icy resolve settled over me. I would not be caught off guard. Every instinct honed from years of building Harper Designs from nothing told me that the coming hours would demand vigilance, strategy, and unwavering composure. And yet, beneath the shock and fear, a spark of determination flickered. This night, like every challenge I had faced, would eventually reveal its lessons. I would survive, and I would turn this betrayal into a lesson far greater than anyone around me could imagine. I had lived 65 years and had never been easily fooled. I had faced ruthless adversaries in the fashion world, negotiated hostile takeovers, and navigated cutthroat boardrooms where every smile could mask a knife. Cassandra's furtive glance did not escape me. I sensed the danger immediately, yet instead of causing a scene, I chose to play her game. I smiled, laughed, and engaged in light conversation, pretending ignorance, letting the music and chatter cloak the storm I sensed brewing. When Cassandra approached with a glass of champagne, her voice dripping with practiced sweetness, "Mom, have a sip. You deserve it." I accepted the glass with a warm, genuine smile. "Thank you, Cassandra," I replied, soft and measured, hiding the storm behind my eyes. Her golden hair caught the chandelier light as she moved, radiant and meticulous. Yet every detail betrayed a nervous tension she couldn't completely suppress. Her focus flicked to a guest across the room, someone showing off a diamond ring, and in that brief distraction I acted. With a careful, fluid motion, I swapped my champagne with the glass in Margaret's hand. Margaret, 62, a retired fashion editor who had always seemed slightly adrift, a little forgetful, a dreamer in a world too sharp for her. She smiled at the glass as if it were a gift, not the vehicle of a hidden plot. I returned to the conversation with a colleague, sipping nothing, every nerve alert, watching Cassandra inch closer. The moment stretched. 5 minutes passed. Margaret raised her glass to complement the unique flavor of the champagne. Then suddenly her body convulsed, collapsing onto the marble floor, her mouth frothing. The room erupted. Screams, gasps, shattering glasses, and the panicked rush of guests collided in a chaotic symphony. My heart thundered, but my mind, cold and alert, was already racing. No, this isn't the person who was meant to fall. I knelt beside Margaret, keeping my voice steady as I checked her pulse, though inside my mind was a whirlwind of calculation and disbelief. Cassandra's shriek echoed through the apartment, perfectly modulated, her body leaning forward as if about to faint with worry. But her eyes, the rapid flicker, the slight tremor in her hands, betrayed the role she was playing. Not a mother-in-law's grief, but a calculated act, a performance meant to mislead everyone. Nathan arrived, pale, his expression frozen between horror and disbelief. But in the split second I glimpsed him, our eyes met briefly, and I noticed it. The look between him and Cassandra, too long, too secretive, carrying a weight of complicity that chilled me. It wasn't panic. It wasn't love. It was something else entirely. Paramedics arrived, efficient, calm. Yet the room remained a scene of pandemonium. I rose, stepping aside with measured grace, letting them take Margaret into the stretcher while observing Cassandra like a hawk. Every movement, every breath was an unspoken confession. Nathan hovered nearby, phone vibrating incessantly, ignoring every call, lost in the tangled web spun between mother and wife. By the time we reached Mount Sinai Hospital, the corridors were stark and cold, a sharp contrast to the warm, sparkling chaos of the penthouse. Doctors whispered in hushed tones, diagnosing Margaret with poisoning from a plant-derived alkaloid. Cassandra paced the hall, heels clicking rhythmically against the sterile floor, each step echoing like a countdown. Nathan sat rigidly, unmoving, the weight of the situation pressing on him, yet somehow separate from it, untouched. I offered a casual, almost maternal reassurance, "Cassandra, it's certainly not your fault," and added as if in passing, "Luckily, Margaret only had a few sips of the champagne. Otherwise, it might have been much worse." Cassandra stiffened for the briefest moment, just enough for me to confirm what I already suspected. The flicker of unease in her eyes, the rigid line of her jaw, confirmed the truth I had sensed from the beginning. She was not a victim of circumstance, she was an architect of chaos. I maintained my composure, my hands steady, my voice calm. Around us, doctors and nurses moved with urgency, but in that moment, the room seemed suspended in a strange, heavy stillness. I could see every detail, the tilt of Cassandra's head, the subtle tightening of her fists, Nathan's distant, distracted gaze, and I catalogued them all. Every movement, every glance, was a thread in the tapestry of deception I had been thrust into. And in that moment, amidst the sterile smells of antiseptic and the distant beeping of monitors, I realized something crucial. This was not a night for panic. It was a night for strategy. For decades, I had built an empire out of nothing, navigating betrayals and power plays in a world that respected only those who could endure, observe, and act decisively. This was simply another boardroom, another challenge, only higher stakes and far more personal. I straightened, my spine rigid, and took a deep breath. Cassandra continued to pace, unaware that the very person she had sought to manipulate was already several moves ahead. Nathan remained seated, still seemingly passive, yet I noted the subtle tension in his shoulders, the fleeting hesitation in his posture. The threads of conspiracy were clear now, the players identifiable. And I, Elizabeth Harper, would not be caught unprepared. This night, like every other obstacle I had faced in life and business, would reveal its lessons. And I would learn them, and I would prevail. That night, back in my apartment, I uncorked a fresh bottle of champagne, meticulously inspected first, and settled into my study, the familiar scent of old leather and paper filling the air. The walls were adorned with sketches from decades past, faint pencil lines and bold strokes tracing the evolution of Harper Designs. Each drawing was a reminder of the battles I had fought, the nights I had sacrificed sleep and comfort to build something lasting. Tonight, those sketches seemed to whisper, urging me to trust my instincts, to observe and calculate. I didn't turn to a computer or spreadsheets. My mind, honed over years of high-stakes decisions and relentless problem-solving, became my tool. I began to map out everything I knew about Nathan and Cassandra. The debts, the mismanagement, the unsustainable lifestyle. Nathan's architectural firm was hemorrhaging money, clients pulling contracts or refusing to pay. Cassandra's lavish spending left their accounts dangerously low, yet she flaunted luxury. Exotic vacations, designer wardrobes, and that Brooklyn Heights house with its infinity pool and interiors that screamed wealth beyond their means. I thought of the money I had quietly provided over the past 5 years, $250,000 in total. Down payments for their house, private school tuition for their daughter Lily, 10 years old, and small bailouts here and there. It had all been done out of love, or at least what I believed was love. Now in the quiet of my study I saw the truth. They didn't see it as gifts. They saw it as an advance on my inheritance, a down payment on the fortune they believed they were entitled to. The next morning Nathan arrived, bearing a pastel-colored box of pastries from La Doury, his attempt at a gentle, caring gesture. "Mom, I thought you might not have eaten after last night," he said, placing the delicate treats on the table. But his eyes, for all their practiced warmth, avoided meeting mine directly. There was a tension in the air, an unspoken negotiation hidden behind the pleasantries. He then suggested, as casually as if discussing the weather, that I consider moving to a senior community called Willow Grove. I almost laughed at the audacity. "Mom, at 65, living alone like this is dangerous. What if you fall or something happens?" he said, reminding me of Margaret's poisoning as if I were the fragile one, the one needing protection. The suggestion was disguised as concern, yet the implication was clear. They wanted me out, conveniently out of the way, to clear the path for their ambitions. I smiled softly, keeping my composure. "How considerate of you, Nathan. I'll think about it," I replied, though my mind was already working far ahead, unraveling the layers of deception and self-interest. I wasn't about to be herded into a gilded cage under the guise of safety or filial care. Instead, I took action quietly but decisively. I contacted my lawyer, Olivia Bennett, 50 years old, sharp and unyielding, the woman who had guided me through corporate battles, betrayals, and every high-stakes challenge Harper Designs had faced. Olivia understood the nuances of power and influence as intimately as I did, and she would help me ensure that any moves Nathan and Cassandra might make would be anticipated, countered, and exposed if necessary. I reviewed every transaction, every gift, every mortgage payment I had made on their behalf, cataloging them meticulously. It was not vengeance I sought, but clarity and protection. Protection for myself and perhaps for the legacy I had built with blood, sweat, and vision. Each note I made, each mental map I drew brought a measure of calm. I realized that the strength I had cultivated over decades, the same strength that had carried me through loss, heartbreak, and corporate warfare, was now my greatest ally. Sitting there in the quiet, champagne glass in hand, I felt a mixture of sorrow and resolve. Sorrow for the betrayal that had come cloaked in smiles and honeyed words, and resolve for the steps I would take next. Nathan and Cassandra might have assumed they were manipulating the matriarch, but they underestimated her. Elizabeth Harper, founder of Harper Designs, survivor and strategist, was fully awake now. The game had changed, and I intended to see it through to the end. In her Midtown office, Olivia Bennett listened intently as I recounted every detail. The vile Cassandra had slipped into the champagne, Nathan's fleeting, guilty glances, and the tense choreography that had played out in my penthouse. Her sharp eyes never wavered. "We need evidence, Liz," she said finally, voice steady and precise. "If there is poison in that champagne, we can prove intent to commit murder. But the problem is proving they targeted you specifically." She outlined a strategy with meticulous care. First, I would undergo a mental competency evaluation to verify my intellectual soundness. Simultaneously, she arranged for a state-of-the-art security system to be installed at my apartment. "If they dare to try this again," she said, "you need to be ready." I didn't hesitate to call an old friend, Marcus Reed, a 55-year-old private investigator who had once handled delicate cases for high-profile fashion designers. Marcus dug deep and revealed a chilling web. Nathan and Cassandra weren't just drowning in debt, 2 mortgages, $100,000 in credit card balances. They were setting up a life on borrowed time. Cassandra had purchased a $750,000 life insurance policy with me as the insured and herself as the beneficiary. And Nathan had secretly paid Dr. Alan Carter, a psychiatrist to evaluate me. Their plan was clear. If I refused to cede control of my assets, they would have a professional declare me mentally incompetent, opening the door for them to take over my fortune. I felt a surge of anger, but it was tempered by calculation. The people I had loved, the people I had supported, were plotting against me. But I was Elizabeth Harper. I didn't panic, I strategized. I would turn the tables. I decided to set a trap. The next day, I called Nathan and Cassandra, feigning agreement. I told them I was ready to move to Willow Grove, a luxury senior community, and that I would sign the power of attorney papers. The news lit their faces with an excitement so blatant it was almost comical, eyes gleaming like children at a Christmas tree. Cassandra practically floated into the room, carrying the meticulously organized documents, her smile saccharine, every movement calculated. Nathan followed, composed yet taut, a visible tremor of anticipation hidden beneath his calm exterior. Cassandra began explaining the papers, her voice honeyed, dripping with the practiced cadence of manipulation. "This is the immigration agreement, Liz, and this is the power of attorney giving Nathan authority to manage your assets," she said. Her words slow, deliberate, meant to soothe and reassure. Nathan interjected occasionally, attempting to mask his anxiety with a neutral tone. I studied the documents carefully. The power of attorney was comprehensive, too comprehensive. It granted Nathan control over every account, every investment, every savings fund I had built over decades. My heart beat steadily, but my mind raced. "Huh," I said lightly, keeping my tone conversational. "This seems rather generous, doesn't it?" My voice carried a softness, an almost amused incredulity. Cassandra laughed, the sound sweet but hollow like sugar dissolving too quickly in tea. "Oh, it's just routine paperwork, nothing serious," she replied, brushing aside my comment as if I were a child questioning adult matters. I leaned back slightly, taking a deliberate pause. "I'll need some time to review everything, make sure all the details are clear," I said, masking the storm of plans forming in my mind. They left, but not without a reminder. All documents needed to be submitted by Friday. Their steps echoed in the hall, leaving a faint trace of entitlement in the air, a belief that the game was theirs to win. I remained seated, the weight of strategy pressing down on me. Marcus would start tracing every financial move, every connection, while Olivia would ensure that every legal avenue was ready. And I would wait, patient and poised, letting their greed and overconfidence set the stage for their downfall. I didn't need to rush. Every gesture they had made, the smiles, the excuses, the honeyed reassurances, was now a thread I could pull, unraveling the tapestry of deceit. Sitting there, documents spread before me, I felt a strange clarity. Years of experience, decades of building an empire from nothing, had prepared me for this precise moment. Nathan and Cassandra had assumed I was a fragile matriarch, ripe for manipulation. They were wrong. Elizabeth Harper, founder of Harper Designs, was fully alert, every sense heightened, every decision deliberate. They had underestimated the depth of her resolve. And as I sipped a glass of champagne, not the tainted one, of course, I smiled quietly to myself. The next move would be mine. That night, back in the quiet of my apartment, I called Olivia. "Prepare a set of fake power of attorney documents, Olivia, and contact the police. I want them here tomorrow morning." Olivia chuckled over the line, her voice sharp but amused. "You really are a warrior, Liz. All right, let's make sure they dig their own grave." I set the phone down and let my eyes wander around the study. The old-fashioned sketches on the walls, relics of decades of work and struggle, seemed to watch me like silent witnesses. The room was dim, lit only by the desk lamp, casting long shadows across the sketches of dresses, I had once dreamed would change the world. At 65, I had never felt more alert, more ready. Every instinct, every lesson learned from years of building Harper Designs, told me this was the moment to strike with precision. Friday morning arrived, crisp and bright. I dressed in a tailored navy dress that gave me the poise of authority, not the softness of a mother they thought I was. Olivia's fake documents were meticulously organized in a sleek black folder, waiting on the desk as though inviting them to take the bait. Nathan and Cassandra arrived promptly, buzzing with excitement, their eyes locked on the folder. Cassandra's beige designer dress shimmered in the morning light, her red lips painted with perfect precision, while Nathan's vest and tie couldn't hide the tension coiled beneath his calm exterior. They walked in, practically vibrating with anticipation, thinking victory was theirs. "Shall we sign, Mom?" Nathan asked, trying to sound casual, though the tremor in his hands betrayed him. I gestured gracefully to the folder. "By all means," I said softly, keeping my voice light, warm even, hiding the storm beneath. Cassandra leaned over, her honeyed voice explaining each page. "This is the immigration document, Liz, and this is the power of attorney giving Nathan authority to manage your assets," she said, every word slow, deliberate, designed to reassure and manipulate. Nathan interjected occasionally, attempting to mask his anxiousness with a neutral tone, but his eyes flickered nervously. They pored over the documents, flipping pages and nodding, oblivious to the fact that every word, every signature line was part of a trap. I sat back, glass of untouched champagne in hand, watching them, calm as a predator. Then the door chimed. 2 figures entered, Detective Rachel Torres, 40, from the New York Police Department, followed by a colleague. Her presence brought an immediate chill to the room. "Mrs. Harper, we need to speak with you regarding the poisoning incident at your party," Rachel said, her tone formal, controlled. Cassandra went pale, her lips parting in a faint gasp, while Nathan shot to his feet. "Poisoning? What poisoning?" he demanded, voice cracking slightly. Rachel's gaze never wavered. "Mrs. Margaret Peterson was poisoned with an extract of oleander, a deadly substance. We tested the champagne bottles. The toxin was present, and the highest concentration was found in the glass intended for Mrs. Harper." I met Cassandra's eyes directly, my own gaze unflinching. "I saw you pour the poison into my glass, Cassandra. I switched it with your mother's." Nathan froze, shock etched across his face. You knew? And you said nothing." "I knew everything," I said, voice cold, precise like a scalpel. "The life insurance policy, the debts, Dr. Carter, the plan to send me to Willow Grove to take my money." Cassandra shrieked. "This is a misunderstanding." But Rachel moved with swift authority, snapping handcuffs onto her wrists. "Cassandra Hartwell, you are under arrest for attempted murder." Nathan sank into the nearest chair, whispering almost to himself, "Mom, I didn't know she intended to kill you. I just thought she was trying to persuade you to move into the community." But his phone betrayed him. Messages between him and Cassandra revealed the plan in clear, incriminating detail, how they had intended to make me appear cooperative, and the payments to Dr. Carter to prepare a declaration of incompetence. "You knew," I said softly, though my heart thudded painfully in my chest. "You didn't know about the poison, but you knew they wanted my money. You were complicit in every step of this scheme." Nathan's face paled further, the weight of guilt and shock crashing down on him. He opened his mouth, but no words came, just a tremor running through his hands. Cassandra's perfect facade had shattered, replaced by raw panic and fear. The room seemed suspended in a tense silence, broken only by the soft shuffle of the officers and the faint hum of the city outside. I remained seated, poised, the calm eye in the storm I had long anticipated. The trap had worked flawlessly. I leaned back slightly, allowing the moment to settle, letting Nathan and Cassandra comprehend the full scope of their failed plan. I had survived their greed, their betrayal, and their calculated attempt on my life. And now justice was about to take its course. For the first time in hours, I allowed a small, satisfied smile to cross my face. The game had ended, and I, Elizabeth Harper, had emerged not just unscathed but victorious. 3 months later, I sat in the small garden on my rooftop, surrounded by the rose bushes my late husband had once tended with such care. The soft evening breeze carried the scent of blossoms, and for the first time in months, I allowed myself to simply breathe. Cassandra had been sentenced to 12 years for attempted murder, while Nathan received 2 years for his role as an accomplice. Justice, though delayed, had finally been served. My phone rang and I smiled when I saw Lily's name. My 10-year-old granddaughter's voice trembled, thick with emotion. "Grandma, I'm so sorry for my parents. Can I stay with you this summer?" "Anytime, my dear," I replied warmly, feeling a lightness in my chest I hadn't felt in years. Margaret, now a close friend, was working on a book about elder abuse, inspired in part by our story. It was comforting to see her channel her experience into something meaningful. Meanwhile, I had revised my will carefully. Nathan would receive a modest trust of $40,000 a year, enough to live, but not to indulge in luxury or extravagance. The majority of my fortune would be dedicated to a fashion scholarship for young designers and charitable causes. Cassandra, of course, received nothing. Olivia and her team had secured my assets with airtight measures, ensuring no one could question my competence or challenge my authority. For years, I had feared the betrayal of my own flesh and blood would leave me broken. But now, as the sunset painted the New York skyline in golden hues, I felt free. At 65, I was far from fragile. I had built an empire from nothing, faced those who sought to destroy me, and emerged not only unscathed but empowered. This story wasn't just about a poisoned glass of champagne. It was about reclaiming control over your life, asserting your agency, and refusing to let anyone rob you of your autonomy. From this experience, I want to share 5 lessons I've learned. 1. Trust your instincts. The moment something feels off, pay attention. Your intuition is often your first line of defense. 2. Knowledge is power. Understand the people around you, their motivations, and the risks they pose. Awareness gives you an advantage. 3. Strategize, don't react. In moments of betrayal, patience and planning are far more effective than impulsive anger. 4. Protect your legacy. Your work, your assets, your achievements, they are yours. Safeguard them with clarity and foresight. 5. Empower the next generation. Share your strength and wisdom with those who will benefit from it. Family, young professionals, or your community. Thank you for listening to my story. I hope it inspires you to trust yourself and protect what matters most. Share your experiences in the comments. I'd love to hear your stories. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more. Life is short, but your strength is eternal.